Sometimes it feels like Donald Trump's cabinet members are competing to see who can be the absolute worst at their job. But in reality, there's no competition. Pete Hegseth takes that title. He's unqualified, careless, and constantly surrounded by scandals. This week was no different, as a major Pentagon leak sparked a new firing controversy that left Hegseth panicking and Donald Trump embarrassed. We'll break it all down and show how this exposed Trump's false claims. But before we get into it, make sure to hit the like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and support the channel. Now, let's start with a critical question raised by Senator Chris Murphy about Hegseth's supposed support for the troops.
Let me ask the question this way so that you can assuage people's concerns that there is a double standard. The National Guard was deployed here on January 6th, and that was a decision made by the Department of Defense. Do you support that decision? Do you believe that that was the right decision to deploy the National Guard to defend the Capitol on January 6th?
All I know is it's the right decision to be deploying the National Guard in Los Angeles to defend ICE agents who deserve to be defended in the execution of their jobs.
But I think it's important to know whether you think it was also important to have the National Guard defending the United States Capitol when there were violent protesters here on the president's behalf, to make sure that folks know that you care about protest, whether it's against the president or on behalf of the president.
Senator, I was in the Washington, D.C. National Guard when that happened, and was initially ordered to go guard the inauguration of Joe Biden. But because of the politicization of the Biden administration, my orders were revoked. And ultimately, because of the politics that were being played inside the Defense Department by the previous administration.
But do you support the decision made on January 6th to send the National Guard here to defend the Capitol?
I support the decision that President Trump made and requesting the National Guard that was denied.
So you do not.
President Trump
you do not support the decision.
Support
you do not
for the National Guard
decision to send the National Guard here to defend the Capitol. I think that speaks to the worry that many Americans have that there is a double standard, that you are not willing to defend against attacks made on our democracy by supporters of the president, but you are willing to deploy the National Guard to protect against protesters who are criticizing the president. That's not how our taxpayer dollars are supposed to work. They're supposed to be used to defend the United States, no matter the nature of the political affiliation of the protesters.
Pete Hegseth has shown time and time again that he'll do whatever Donald Trump wants. But what's truly alarming is how far he's willing to go, even without being asked. It's one thing for Hegseth to respond when Trump gives him an order, but it's another for him to act preemptively, taking reckless steps simply because he thinks it's what Trump would want. From talk of putting troops on the ground to the chaos surrounding the Pentagon, Hegseth has disgraced the very institution he was supposed to protect. And he's made it clear on Fox News just how far he's willing to go to keep Donald Trump's loyalty. That's the context we need to understand before breaking down this latest scandal.
National Guard be detaining Americans on American soil?
Under Title 32, which is the authorization they'll be using, they have broad latitude, but they're not going to be involved in law enforcement functions. They will be standing right alongside our federal agents like they were in Los Angeles. They're going to be proactive. If you take an action or a shot at them, there will be a consequence. So
if a crime is being committed, in other words, and National Guardsmen sees a crime being committed, then what?
They can come alongside and assist law enforcement.
What if law enforcement isn't on that corner?
Then they will. I will have their back to ensure they can take the necessary action to protect citizens of D.C. and to protect themselves. So there's no rogue law enforcement going on from the National Guard, but there's also the application of common sense. We're not going to have National Guardsmen sitting there like this, seeing a crime committed and not do something about it. You can help somebody, interdict, temporarily detain like we did in Los Angeles, and hand over to law enforcement. Those are the types of things the National Guard can be trained in.
The question of martial law keeps getting raised by the left, that Donald Trump and Pete Hegseth, they want to impose martial law as authoritarians would. Mm-hmm. To that you say?
To that I say, look at Los Angeles. They said the exact same thing. Oh, look, 4,000 troops, California National Guard. Oh, look, the Marines. You can't put in the Marines. What? They were the troops available to ensure that we de-escalated the situation and didn't allow other lawbreakers to say, look, it's wide open. We can do whatever we want in these sanctuary cities. I was told Oh, you're going to lock up political opponents. You're going to go after Democrats, yada, yada. It's the same stuff every time, mischaracterizing our intentions. The intentions of this president is to establish law and order using legal and lawful and constitutional means, which he completely has. And you know what? You know why they don't like him? He's got the guts to do it. He's got the guts to say, I'm going to federalize the police that don't work. I'm going to bring in the National Guard. I'm going to bring in federal marshals. I'm going to bring in the park police.
So Pete Hegseth is now saying this isn't about safety. This isn't about protecting people. This is about satisfying Donald Trump for as long as possible. If there was some cohesive plan here, if he knew what he was doing, if Trump knew what he was doing, then they'd be able to create a timetable for how long it would take them to make DC safe again, which they're actually not helping in doing. But really, what this is Hegseth showing his full loyalty to Trump and saying, I will do whatever it takes to appease you. And he just did. After Trump was humiliated by a top general in the Pentagon, who Hegseth has now fired. Hegseth fires general who told truth about bombing Iran. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth has fired a top Pentagon official whose preliminary report on damage to Iran's nuclear sites by U.S. strikes allegedly angered Donald Trump. From February 2024 until Friday, Air Force Lieutenant General Jeffrey Cruz was the head of the Defense Intelligence Agency, whose early assessment of the June bombings found damage to be not as severe as the president claimed. In response, Trump fumed about the news stories on that report by the New York Times and CNN. Hegseth, a former Fox host, fired Cruz due to loss of confidence in the 34-year Air Force veteran. Two people familiar with the move told the Washington Post. The Defense Department declined to comment to the Daily Beast on the reason for Cruz's firing, candidates for his replacement, and whether he should retire. In a statement, Virginia Senator Mark Warner, who vice chairs the Senate Intelligence Committee, said the firing underscores the Trump administration's dangerous habit of treating intelligence as a loyalty test rather than a safeguard for our country. The Pentagon's initial report found that the strikes only set Iran's nuclear program back by a few months and was not the complete and total obliteration Trump bragged about. Donald Trump uses his cabinet secretaries as extensions of himself. These are not people looking to do a job, accomplish anything, or protect us. And obviously, the most blatant example of that right now can be seen with Pam Bandy, Kash Patel, and Todd Blanche, who are trying to help Donald Trump cover up his Epstein scandal. And Chris Hayes broke it all down right here.
Good evening from New York. I'm Chris Hayes. It has been a truly crazy news day in the made-for-TV / ongoing national nightmare that is the second presidency of Donald Trump. Tonight, we are tracking two big stories coming out of the Department of Justice, although there's some others we'll discuss over the next 2 hours. The first being the FBI raid on the home and office of former Trump National Security Advisor John Bolton. You can see the pictures of them taking boxes out there. It started just after dawn this morning. It went on for nearly 8 hours. Bolton has become a prominent Trump critic and was talking about fear of retribution from the president as early as last week. We're going to have more on that story, but then hours after this news broke, the DOJ released the audio recordings of those highly irregular meetings. I mean, truly, truly anomalous, unprecedented, between Donald Trump's former personal defense attorney, the guy that, tried to get him cleared of criminal charges, who is now the number 2 at DOJ, that guy, Todd Blanche, and the convicted sex offender, Ghislaine Maxwell. She, of course, notoriously, famously, the longtime confidant and enabler, co-conspirator of the late child sex trafficker, Jeffrey Epstein. Blanche announced that the 6 hours of recordings and 329 pages of transcripts were being released today, quote, in the interest of transparency, although it's not clear that that's all of their conversation. More on that later. Missing from the transparency, of course, is the obvious question, why on earth would the Deputy Attorney General take a private meeting with a convicted child sex trafficker who his boss, Donald Trump, has ties to, and then, as soon as she tells him what she told him, gets upgraded to a lower security federal prison? Now, that question remains unanswered. What we do know from the trove of materials they released is that much of the interview with Maxwell seems to be an attempt to support the narrative that, surprise, surprise, the Department of Justice and Donald Trump have been pushing. Nothing to see here.
Never saw the president in any type of massage setting. I never witnessed the president in any inappropriate setting in any way. The president was never inappropriate with anybody. In the times that I was with him, he was a gentleman in all respects.
If there's one word that comes to mind with Donald Trump, of course, it's gentleman. He was a gentleman in all respects. But here's the thing. Maxwell did not stop there. She went on to tell the Deputy Attorney General of these United States that she, the lady who was charged with conspiring with Epstein to abuse minors, who's convicted of that and doing time for it, that she, get this, ready for this? That she never saw Jeffrey Epstein engage in anything that was non-consensual.
At some point, he was getting massages 7 days a week, sometimes multiple massages a day. Women have said that were there, that say they were there giving him massages, said that those included some sort of sexual conduct, however you define that in the broadest sense, not just a traditional massage regularly. So, what did you see and hear at the time? Where does that leave you in your mind with what happened?
Okay, so I saw Epstein with women. What I mean by that is he would have women around him. So anytime I saw anybody with him, they were happy to be with him. So I never saw an aggressive move. I never saw anything that was
non-consensual.
Well, thank you. Okay. I never saw anything that was non-consensual.
Did you see him engage in sexual conduct during massages?
Well, you could define sexual conduct as in, I did see women who could have been, less than normally clad for a massage, but especially on the island where they would be in a bikini or possibly even topless. Yeah, I did see that.
It really couldn't be more blatant than this. Donald Trump is once again using the power of the presidency, not to serve the American people, but to shield himself and his wealthy, well-connected allies from accountability. This is the pattern. Protect the elite, silence the truth, and dodge responsibility. And that is exactly why we will keep calling it out every single day. If you want to support that effort and make sure these stories don't get buried, hit that subscribe button, drop a like on this video, and share it so more people see what's really happening. And if you made it all the way to the end, let me know in the comments with a blue heart. Together, we'll keep shining a light on corruption, no matter how hard they try to cover it up. Until next time, I will see you soon.